So we're going to talk a little bit about the World Wetland Network and how it's done some work with its members. We have around 250 NGO members around the world, and they're largely smaller NGO and civil society groups. And then we are going to talk about the new Global Wetland Watch, which is essentially a type of citizen science looking at the state of the world's wetlands, really from the point of view of people who are living and working in and around wetlands, who really know their wetlands well. We have an esteemed panel of folks here who are going to, where are they? Yeah.
We can change that.
We're still waiting.
We're off.
Yeah. Who will support us to do this. So the way that we're going to do it is Kim Diana Connolly, who works out of Buffalo University and is part of the World Wetland Network. We'll talk about this initial survey of our members, which was timed to feed into what happens with the Ramsar COP.
You should be on the next slide, but yes.
Yeah, that's fine. Can we go to the next slide?
I have no idea.
Let's see. There we go. Yeah. And then Nick and Rob will.
It's actually Rob and then Nick.
Okay, Rob and then Nick. We'll talk about the Global Wetland Watch. Matt's not doing it. No, so I'm going to cover the last bit. So we will then see.
You see, we're all
very, very organized. So we're hoping that what we'll be able to do is give you an indication of wetland civil society and its views of what's occurring on the ground. Then we'll talk about this structured Global Wetland Watch citizen science survey. And then we'll have a bit of a workshop at the end to ask you guys what you think is the most useful evolution of this wetland survey. We've done it twice now, and we want to kind of find out where we go next. You know, should we keep it as a fairly high level specialist scientific thing? Should we open it out so that it's more accessible to people? And how do we think that we could run that and usefully use the results? So I'm Chris Rostron. I work for WWT, one of the IOPs on our international engagement program. Should we just do some intros?
Sounds sensible.
Rob?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I hope you stay awake. I'm Rob McInnes. I'm an independent wetland specialist based in Oxford in the UK. I'm here representing Society of Wetland Scientists. And just a quick plug, I'm also the Strategic Plan 5 Working Group consultant being appointed. So if anyone wants to talk to me about the next strategic plan and the engagement in that, which is very relevant within what we're discussing tonight, please either grab me when you can, when you see me, but not straight after this, I've got to go to a contact group. Okay.
Very busy boy, exactly. Yeah.
And there's also a whiteboard down in the exhibition room.
Thank you, Nick.
For you to put your views up. We have a different question each day, and to go and write your views and answers about what might be issues for the next strategic plan. Which will be for 2025 to 2030. So the development hasn't started yet, but the process of engaging people and deciding how to do it is what we're involved in.
Right, great. Sounds good. Yeah, now introduce yourself, Nick.
Oh, me? I'm Nick Davison. Nick?
And no more introduction needed.
Some of you know that I was Deputy Secretary General of the Ramsar Convention for nearly 15 years, until I retired. I'm now supposed to be retired. It does not seem like that. I don't think anybody working in wetlands actually ever is allowed to retire.
Yeah, you're not doing.
Look at Phil Straw, for example.
Exactly.
So I'm now back in the UK, and I do some work as an independent consultant. A lot of that seems to be working with this dubious character at the end here. Just a little promo. I think it's Wednesday. We are launching an Indo-Burma Wetland Outlook, which Rob and I worked on for the IBRI regional initiative, and do come to that because I think it gives an example of how many other parts of the world could develop regional outlooks about what's happening to wetlands, and we can give some examples of that. So there's a little plug for another side of it. You can't escape.
Exactly. And Kim.
Oh, now how are we moving that, or I don't know what's going on with the Zoom, or
we're just going to let you can just introduce yourself.
I will introduce myself. That's great. So and we've gone to the next slide. Excellent. So excellent. So I am here. I am very fortunate to have known some of these people for a little while and been invited to be part of the World Wetland Network Committee. My day job is at the University of Buffalo, which is the State University of New York's law school, where I'm a professor, and I do a bunch of things, including running the environmental law clinic and working with these amazing students who get to do some Ramsar work with me. But tonight we're here to talk about this, which is a great report that just came out I was not active in drafting it, but I gave some comments on it, so I kind of feel a little bit, tiny bit of ownership. There's a QR code if you want to find it, so you can look at it right now and ignore us, although that would be sad for
Well,
you.
does everybody need to rush up with their mobile phones and point it at that?
If you'd like, or get it afterwards. I don't know if you can get it with your phone from there.
Yeah, can you do it from distance?
You do it from distance?
You do it, James?
Let's see. So the first on the side, on the left, is the new one, and then which just came out in 2021, and then there was an earlier one in 2015. And again, you're going to be thinking about kind of what I tell you later, because we're going to be thinking about maybe reframing some of what I'm going to tell you about that's been reported in this. So the next slide talks about just quickly about the takeaways, and that is a lot of text, and that is not even everything. But really, the big thing to think about here is that nonprofits, the NGOs, and the civil society organizations, they value the Ramsar Convention. They could value it more, and so that's part of what we talked about. And contracting parties, they recommend from the survey, should engage more fully with both the convention and in country with NGOs and civil society. And communication is definitely needed between focal points and the NGOs and civil society. And recommending that a draft resolution at COP15 recommend two-way engagement with civil society for lots of reasons, including SEPA, but lots of other reasons. The Secretariat, Steering Committee, and SCRP should set goals to increase awareness. We've actually heard this even today about how important this is, and that's kind of supported by the survey. Contracting parties should add on the ground NGO engagement for national reporting, which I have been involved with Ramsar for many years in the U.S. And right now we actually our latest report, which you can see publicly, has no nonprofit focal point, has no NGO focal point, and nobody was consulted in our latest report. And I know that because I was part of working with students to get the Niagara River corridor designated on the U.S. side as our 40th Ramsar site in the United States. And there's bingo boards. You can come up here because we're gamifying it with SEPA. And so we've got really interesting things happening at this site. And their report on the latest actions in rivers was from long before that, and not the 2019 designation. So like engaging with us would have been better for the national reporting. And I'm sure that's true everywhere, which is hard. We don't have enough people in the government places. We know that. We're not blaming. We're just suggesting ways to do that. And the Ramsar and name recognition should be more widely used to increase awareness. Now we go to the next slide and we see something that might be hard to see from there. Let me just tell you about this. This goes from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and it talks about familiarity with Ramsar. There's a decent amount of familiarity with Ramsar. It's gone down a little bit actually. But there's less familiarity with Ramsar processes, and there's not a feeling that Ramsar benefits the work of the people who answered the survey as much as one would expect. And there's not a feeling that Ramsar is achieving its mission as well as it should. And there's definitely not a feeling, as I already reported, that national reports are always accurate from the people in the NGOs on the ground. And it's not a feeling that the government collaborates as much as there should be. Now there's variations, but this kind of shows this. And if we go to the next slide, we can see more about this. The government's, and this is one piece. So if you go to the whole report, you'll see lots and lots of this. This is just a snapshot, so you can get excited to read the report. The government's collaborative with NGO in wetland conservation is the question, and the answer was, well, there's some people who strongly agree, probably lots of Australians. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, and agree. And then neither agree or disagree is kind of a huge amount. And then look at disagree and strongly disagree. So there's a lot of work that can be done to engage with the people who are, as I say it, you know, the Ramsar Convention creates this great heart, and then there's these strong veins and arteries, but like the way that things really get out to a lot of people is through the NGOs and through the civil society organizations, and kind of engaging in that would be so beneficial. So we go to the next slide. One of the things on the good news front is that there are some benefits. There are some benefits that NGOs see. Definitely the World Wetlands Day materials are well loved. Global Wetland Outlook is really loved. Some briefing notes, policy things, handbooks. People are using some of those sort of things, but not enough. They could use more, but I just don't want it to be all downer on this. So if we go to the next one, I'm going to give you a great model, a model approach for what we as the representative of the NGOs worldwide see is Australia's Wetland Network, which has over 30 active members, is really been reactivated by their focal point, has regular meetings twice a year, and really two-way exchanges, space for presentations, education, management activities. It's a model approach. Go look it up. Go learn more about that if you want to present ideas, unless you're somebody from Australia here, which, yay you, thank you. So the next slide is has
How much did they pay you to say all
that? He's just here to check.
For a trip to Australia, don't you get it? So you know, the NGOs, there's and I have a youth with me here who's one of the youth engaged in wetlands. That's Simon. He grew up with me and is now a wetland lover. And so one of the things is you've got the youth, and we can and not only the NGOs can engage with the youth. And so one of the things that we've done is we've done some with our Niagara River designation. We bring people out with bigger bingo boards than this to play games, but to learn about the species that are out there. People think about Niagara Falls and they're like, oh, there's a big falls. But then we get them looking at the trees and finding the species and looking for snails. And so we've already done this with some youth, and we're actually moving toward doing it with some older folks, with some retired folks starting in the spring. So we're very excited about what's happening with that. Youth are our future. And so that's kind of exciting for us. And then the next slide is my last slide. So, you know, so deploying active NGOs for the benefit of civil society, other NGOs and the Ramsar Convention, on the ground delivery of commitments, including SEPA, are one of the big things that your non-governmental organizations, your nonprofits, the people that are my clients in the environmental clinic that I work with my students in, are really great people that you can work with. And an example of Ramsar support, I'm going to turn it over to the Citizen Science Survey.
Excellent. Seriously done.
Thank you very much, Kim. Okay, so Global Wetland Watch. So several years ago, a small group of us got together and came up with this rather mad idea that we'll do a global citizen science survey to find out the state of wetlands. We didn't realize what we were going to do, how it might manifest itself. We had a broad idea, and the motivation was, we all read these reports which are focused on area of wetland loss. What we find very limited information on is the state of our existing wetlands. And you go to the literature, there's not a lot of information on the state of those existing wetlands. Are they in good condition? Are they in good state? Are they doing okay, or are they degrading? So actually it's looking at the state of those existing wetlands and what's the trend in the state. Are they declining over time? And so what we got together, this was a collaborative effort between the Society of Wetland Scientists, and we have a section within the SWS called the Ramsar section, which Nick chairs, the World Wetland Network, Wildfowl and Wetlands Trust, and also support from Charles Sturt University in Australia. And so what we came up with, we used an online survey, but we also were aware that not everyone has access to the internet or stable access to the internet. So we also had an Excel format where people could download an Excel spreadsheet and fill that in. We translated it into 6 languages. So the 3 languages of the convention, plus Chinese, Arabic, and Russian at the time, yeah, that's right. But again, we were trying to reach out to as many people as possible. And we just put this out there. We sent it out to a whole range of networks, contact groups. I literally went through my email contact list and just blitzed it to everyone. We had no idea what was going to come back. And I remember we sat there in a meeting thinking, what happens if we don't get any responses? And then someone foolishly said that, what happens if we get 20,000 responses? Because we had no budget for this. This was done completely pro bono. just to see what would happen. As it transpires, we got about 600, we got exactly 600 responses. Some of them we couldn't use. They weren't fully filled out. They had major data missing. So we had 541. The actual survey was asking questions about factual information about the wetland. So where is it? Its name, latitude, longitude, name of the person that's filled in the survey, which we've kept anonymous. The state of the Ramsar, of the site, whether that's a Ramsar site or another wetland, but also what's the trend in that state? So think about, has that changed over the time you've known that wetland? And then a whole load of drivers in terms of direct and indirect drivers of wetland loss or degradation. So we got 541 responses from the first survey, and then we thought that wasn't mad enough. Let's do it again. So in 2020, we did it again, and we refined it a little bit. We learned from the process, and what we found is that between the 2017 survey and the 2022, so this is by the time we've got the responses back and we've processed them, we only had an overlap of 10%. So out of the 5, we had about the same number of sites, about 500 or so sites, but only about 50 of those sites have been reported on in both the surveys. So therefore, what we've got is 2 different data sets with a little bit of overlap, but actually quite a lot of independence. But what was really striking is when we compared the data sets, the results were very similar. And I will now hand over to my erudite colleague to tell you about the results.
And Rob will push the buttons.
I will push the buttons.
Some good news. We don't often talk about wetlands and good news in the same sentence, but there is some good news. Our respondents, and this was a huge range of different types of people, academic researchers, site managers, government officials, civil society, and so on, were very, actually surprisingly positive about the state of the wetlands we have not yet tracked. Impressively, 23% said the wetland they reported on was in poor ecological character state. But almost half of them said it's in fair, it's in quite good state. Almost a third said it's good, it's doing okay. So we've got an interesting picture, and this is something which we're very pleased we asked this question as well as the next questions, because in the Ramsar National Reporting, there is a similar question about what's happening to your wetlands and your Ramsar sites. Are they staying about the same in terms of their ecological character? Are they improving or are they deteriorating? But actually, we were talking at lunchtime with some analysis we're doing on this. We didn't ask in the national reports. This first question is, what's their current state? So if somebody says government reports our wetlands are improving, is that because they're in a terrible state and they're getting a bit better? Or is it they're in good state and getting even better? We just can't answer that. But this is really very positive news. And as Rob said, the same picture came out of these 2 different surveys with largely different people talking about different wetlands. So we feel this is quite a robust story. So let's see what happened next. What have we got on this one? Okay. Area, I think this one is. We need to double check
Yes,
that.
it's area.
This is the area of wetlands they reported on. And some said, of the 2 surveys, very similar results. The area of wetlands has increased. Most said it hasn't changed, but quite a lot said it's decreased in area.
Yes. So this is people reporting on an individual site, not on a large
on
scale.
a national scale or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a problem there. Wetlands are decreasing in area. And looking at regionally, what we found was that there is, in general, more, this is the current state of wetlands, but the same picture comes out for trends in wetlands. More wetlands globally are reported as deteriorating than are reported as improving, although the majority are reported as staying much the same. And there are regional differences. This is for the current state of wetlands, and that comes out quite consistently. That North America, you guys are reporting not too bad. Look at the blue. Good, 49, nearly half your wetlands reported on. You're doing okay. That's because you trashed most of the wetlands in previous centuries. You've only got, as did Europe, which again comes out reasonably well, but that's because it's only the little bits left that are being reported on, because we've destroyed our wetlands in Europe since Roman times, millennia. But consistently, and this is actually the same story we get from the Ramsar national reporting and from other analyses about trends in wetland area and so on. I'm afraid to say that Africa and Latin America and the Caribbean, you are the basket cases. And it comes out quite consistently across all the different analyses we've been doing. There are some real problems in these two regions. We're not quite sure why, because we didn't ask that question. But we do have information in the Citizen Science Survey about people saying what they think is what the drivers of the state of wetlands are, both positive and negative. And we've done some analyses on that, and it comes out as the usual culprits: agricultural conversion and pollution and so on. So we have some really powerful stories that have come out of the Citizen Science Survey, and we're pleasantly surprised at what has emerged from all the efforts of the over 500 people reporting in each of the surveys. So hands up, how many of you in this room actually did a report in this survey? Not many. If we do something in the future, we need all of you. By the way, the wetland Rob reported on was his garden pond.
And it was the smallest wetland on the whole of the data.
Absolutely, but it still counts. It was in terrible state, apparently.
No, it wasn't.
So I think that's all I've got in terms of slides on this one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, having done these two surveys and got some really powerful, and these are published, the results are published in Wetland Science and Practice, the most recent one, and in Wetlands Journal, the previous one. So if you want access to the results more fully, let us know, and we will share them with you.
Yeah.
But we're very excited by it because it's really helped to fill a big gap in our understanding of what's happening to wetlands around the world. But we want to do more.
Yeah.
Not content to sit back and say, well, we've done that. So what next?
Yeah. I do this was done by a group of very keen, enthusiastic people at the beginning, who did this pro bono without any funding. But it shows what you can do, and the results are now being used. They were reported actually in the GWO, in the Global Wetland Outlook. And it shows the power of citizen science. You can get a really good picture of what is going on today about the current state of wetlands, and that is a big gap in our knowledge. So we're really keen to see what happens next. And I'm going to hand over to Chris now with some ideas. Okay.
Excellent. So we held a stakeholder workshop back in July. We invited people to come along and use a Miro board all online. So we did some explanation similar to what you've just heard on where we got to with this project, but we told people that we really wanted to know, what they wanted next from the project. We explained some of the options that we were considering. As Rob said, this was very much aimed at people who already knew their wetlands, who were quite specialists in the wetlands. A lot of the questions we asked were quite detailed. So we were asking people, do we need to broaden this out? Do we need to find new ways of allowing people to put information in? Should we be able to let people take pictures of their website and take pictures of their wetland rather and upload them? Do we want them to do stuff in real time? Do they want things fed back to them to show, a live example of what was going on with the state of their wetlands? From the results, we put forward various different models. And what we were looking at was these options really for people. And this is what we would like you guys to talk to us about tonight. We've set up 3 stations on the walls, and we have the good old-fashioned post-it notes. So we are going to support you to ask you some questions about which of these things, which were the 3 most popular things you think might work best. So the community support for wetland monitoring. So this would be pretty regular every month. It would be something which you could access in a way that was easy for you. So you could do it on your mobile phone, for example. The online map would reflect a lot of the stuff that people are putting in. And you'd have a fairly complicated, I guess, or sophisticated dashboard, which would show you in real time exactly how some of those trends were developing. There are kind of some of the challenges to that. So again, that's quite time consuming to do. It's quite expensive to put together. And if you're looking at something that is going to work worldwide, that it is going to be something that we would have to do some fairly significant fundraising for and find some bigger partners, I think, able to allow us to do that. So the wetland condition monitoring, again, this is a simpler way of doing it.
There's a big box that's come out.
Yeah, there was a big box. How did that happen? Don't know what that means.
Oh, no.
Don't know.
It's not showing on our computers.
No, it's weird. It
not on the
doesn't show on
computers,
here, does it?
yeah.
It's threatening to cut us off. Yeah, it's had enough of us already.
Is there a thing we could press over there?
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I'm not touching anything though. So it's gonna go.
Okay, well,
I'll probably get electrocuted.
So
It will go away.
yeah, but let's hope it does.
Tell you what, Chris, I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think the guy might still be outside, so we could try that. Yeah. And the alternative was, one of the things that people said, well, they didn't want to lose was the existing survey stuff that we've done. So we want to keep some continuity of that. We want to keep some of the questions and some of the approaches that we used already, because we want to kind of compare every 3 years, what's been happening with that data. So what we'd like you to do is use some sticky notes. We've got pens, sticky notes, and sheets, and we're going to ask you to look at each of those models and tell us which ones you think is most realistic to do, which ones you think you would find most useful, which ones you think maybe the people you work with would find most useful. Which one would you support? Again, so is it something that you could roll out to other people? Could you help us fundraise? Could you help us run that kind of thing? And finally, what's your role in this whole thing? So we've been working very much with NGOs, but we also recognize that people working for contracting parties or within civil society, different civil society groups, will still be interested in that. So we presented 5 different opportunities for people, and these are the 3 that we came up with. So continuing the status and trends survey, which is the thing that Rob and Nick just reported back to you. So the benefit to that is, we don't have to change things. We've done it all before, and it's easy to compare. The second one, looking at the mobile app or online form. Again, that's a bit more sophisticated, and we can see examples of other places using that. So the Freshwater Watch, for example. And if you look for Global Forest Watch, it was a really good example of how you could do it. It's extremely sophisticated and expensive, possibly something out of our reach, but it gives a great idea of what you can do if you've got good partners and good funding. And then the community support wetland monitoring. Again, this just is an extra kind of level of how you can support people at their local wetlands to really get engaged with this and embrace it and start putting their information in and then getting any information back. We want this to be a two-way thing. And part of it is about, how much effort people put in, then they will expect something in return for that. So
can I just, before you
please do.
I think that was one of the things which we didn't realize when we did the citizen science survey, is we have created now a community of people that are engaged. So we feedback to them, which was a wonderful byproduct, which we didn't even really think about at the time, but we now have an engaged community of around about sort of 800 or so people that are part of the process. So it's a great way to reach people who actually then start wanting information back. So you build a community as well.
Definitely, yeah. So it's really good. So these are the sheets. You will find them put up around the room. So it is just gone 7:05 now. I guess maybe if we have like 5 minutes on each sheet, is that enough? So maybe what we will do, if you are happy to split into 3 groups, we'll have one person at each stand, and they will be able to take notes, answer any questions, explain anything that wasn't clear from that. And then maybe we come back in 1/4 hour and we can see where we've got to for that. So if we want to split up into 3 groups, and then after 5 minutes, we'll rotate and we get a good idea then, I guess, of which of those are most likely to be useful. Does that make sense? Any questions at this point on anything?
And if you didn't bring a pen, you can go home with a University of Buffalo pen. There's no excuse to not be part of the.
Davis. Yeah, okay. Maybe that's the end of his work now. Hello, guys. I don't know if you want to add anything. Sorry, that was not very interactive for you, right?
That's fine. No, we only have one point really, which is about the most complicated model, Model 5, that you still do need some sort of offline way of taking part. So an app that doesn't need to be connected to the internet at the time, something like that.
Good point. Definitely. Yeah.
I apologize. I've got to go to contact groups.
Thank you very much, Rob. Nice to have you here. Right. Thanks, everybody. That was super helpful. There's one extra point from the guys online, which is that if you are going to do something like this for people who have broken internet connections and not regular Wi-Fi or whatever, it's useful to have something that can be used offline and then uploaded later rather than something that you have to do live. I don't know whether do you want to feedback from your group?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to read them all, but we'll collect them. Summarize.
We will.
But there's a lot of yes.
Excellent. Well, that's good.
The question I simply asked the groups was yes or no. Do you think it's a good idea to carry on periodically doing this type of survey we've described? And the answer comes out pretty strongly yes, with some codicils and some suggestions for improvement. And one point we picked up on was that the first two surveys we've done, we really didn't get the surveys out into the hands of people right on the ground in local communities, and that needs some further thought about how to improve that, because their stories are likely to be quite different from what governments tell us or researchers tell us. So we'll capture those and summarize them into something. Are you going to do a sort of feedback to people who are
I will. If anyone wants to feedback, then please come and give us a name card or your email address, and I will make a list of those and be in touch. That would be really great.
That was really helpful. It was a good discussion.
Discussion. And equally for our one as well.
Says yes, but he's got a question I've got to talk to him about tomorrow.
Good. We like questions. My group was really good, and we had a lot of people saying that there has to be stuff on quality control. There has to be stuff which is monthly too frequently. They want to do it in a time scale where people actually see changes in their wetlands. The tech was clearly an issue, making sure that you do it in a very easy to understand way, and you're providing guidance with people so that they're putting in information that's useful. Tell them why you're collecting the information as well. What's going to happen with the information? How is that going to be used afterwards, or how can they use it afterwards? There was quite an interesting comment about how you could combine it with remote sensing. So clearly remote sensing is a really powerful tool, but very often it needs to be double checked by someone on the ground. So if you can do that and show people that they're having an impact on existing data that they can see, that could provide a really powerful tool in terms of finding something that's accurate. The other thing that someone said was that you could possibly raise money by selling this data somehow. So again, if you could find a way of saying this data is useful to local planning authorities, to people who are looking at how they plan for wetlands, or they're giving permission for various different things. It's a little, can't quite see how that would work, but it could be an opportunity, I guess, to be raising some funding to allow us to then, complete or continue this thing, which could be an expensive thing to run.
The question about you said monthly, and you say why monthly, and you're talking about. What did you actually say?
So they were saying that you don't see much change in a month. Do you want to do it in seasonally, for example, or do it in a way where people can see changes? If it's could be, we do it every 3 years at the moment, so a monthly is a lot more than every 3 years, isn't it?
So pouring down the rain 1 year.
Exactly, it's a monsoon. Don't go out. No, exactly. So it's finding the right period, I guess, for people to do it. And if people are super keen on doing it, then they can put it in when they want.
One logic that battling Australia. We've been doing twice yearly for many years with Australian Voter Study Group, and then they said, well, we won't put it monthly because there's too much of an onus on them.
Yep.
But the thing is, on a monthly one, if you miss 3 or 4 of those days, you haven't done much loss of data.
Yeah.
It's twice a year and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then you lose a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's finding that right balance, isn't it, between what we know will be 30
years with it.
I know. Well, you know what you're talking about. Exactly. That's true. And I don't know from the end group.
If you attach it to the World Wetland there.
Yeah.
You could do anything, anyway, something on the World Wetland there.
The problem with World Wetlands Day is in some places it's boiling hot and some places it's freezing cold.
Right,
so
right.
it's That's either end of the year. It's quite tricky.
People in New York, nobody's gonna go out
No,
and do anything with, even though we love our wetlands.
they're frozen over. Exactly. Yeah. And for the end group, Rob's gone. So I don't know whether anyone had any kind of comments from being on that end group that was slightly different. Rob said he had lots of yeses, but yeah.
One thing from experience in some of the other global watches, of course,
Mm-hmm.
watch, that third solution really focused a lot on is expensive. I think the way you start with building a community, it's something you really need.
Yep.
So, you know, whatever you do, please continue that foundation that you have for Global Wetland Watch.
Yep.
And anything on top of that, adds value.
Yeah, for sure.
If no best case scenario, you can do the third option. It's like a very when you need 10 to 20% of your funding for building software.
Yep.
And the rest for capacity building on the ground.
Yeah.
Communications.
Exactly. Yeah, and that could suck up quite a lot of money as well. But it's definitely worth thinking about, isn't it? Yeah. So who do you work for?
Wetlands International.
Oh, cool.
Chris, in a quarter of an hour, we have to be out of here because there's another.
Right, there's another thing, and then plus there's something that just started 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. Okay. So that was really, really helpful. Thank you, guys. It's really nice to be able to work face to face with people and get interactions.
Quick thought.
Yes, so my comment may not be very context specific. I'm coming back to the idea of using the wetland data as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Just a few minutes ago, when the mayor from France won this award, he said he reminded people of the huge mobilization that happens during that day in France, particularly.
Exactly.
800 events.
Yep.
And it would be just a huge opportunity to direct those people to specific locations on where to input that data.
Yeah.
Basically, what we do, we send a link where you're organizing, you just send what you're doing to that link. So something that's just like, it's not about cold or hot, it's like, just think about it, like people are planning to celebrate Christmas, and whether it's cold or hot, they have to do something. And then you start building the awareness towards that, and this definitely challenges.
Yeah. Christmas for wetlands. I like it.
Yes.
No, it's good. I think that it's great an idea to link it to existing dates and get it in people's calendars so they understand that. That's really
And if you have more thoughts, come find us. We're gonna be here for a few days. Come find us.
Exactly.
And there's a Wildfire Wetlands Trust stand down in the exhibition hall, the Society Wetlands
stand 11.
Stand
exactly.
Just opposite it, and that's the hub of attention for everybody.
So if you would like to be kept up to date with stuff, maybe if you could write your email on the flip chart at the back there on the way out, and we'll collect those and keep in touch with you. It would be great to kind of continue the relationship and the discussion with you if that's possible. So great. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you. Very good.